I'm curious to know if I'm being overbearing in my thoughts. The idea of mortality provides us with something beautiful. It was a rough book. Hi, my name is Jillian. Welcome back to my channel. I've read some books recently and I really want to tell you about them. House on the Strand by Daphne du Maurier. This is a time travel book, and we're following Dick Young, who has this chemical concoction. When you drink it, you get transported back in time to the 1400s. However, if you touch someone, you'll be brought back to present day and you become rather violently ill when that happens. Dick does this. He's watching events unfold in the 1400s and he becomes rather addicted to the experience and he begins to fall in love. Based on the back of the book, I had ideas of what might happen, but that was vastly different from what actually happened. I did not see really any of it coming. I am somebody who really enjoys time travel books. This was a little bit different because it was kind of like the main character, Dick, was actually watching a movie rather than really traveling back in time because he couldn't interact with it. It was almost like virtual reality. It was a truly immersive experience for him, but really just that, just something that he's watching unfold. This felt maybe more like a dual timeline. I found in this book that I was not very excited about the story that was happening in the 1400s. I was very much invested in the current day and what was happening with Dick, how his addiction was affecting him and affecting those around him. If you have ever read a Daphne du Maurier book before, you will know that she can take you for a ride. House on the Strand surprised me, but at the same time it didn't come out of left field, which I really appreciated. It all made sense as to what ended up happening in the end. Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This is a dystopian story. It is YA and it takes place in a future where all of the natural causes of death are gone. They're behind us. Because the population is still growing, it's necessary to cull humans. There are people who are known as scythes, who their entire job is to decide who is going to die and then carry that out. The story of Scythe follows these two young people who are apprentices. They're learning how to do the work of scythes. I enjoyed this book. I appreciated that the author wanted to portray that the idea of mortality actually provides us with something useful and something meaningful and something beautiful. So for example, they were in an art museum looking at pieces of art from the times when humans could die from disease, talking about how inspired that work was. How when you have a ticking clock, when you know you're going to die, you feel that pressure and make a concerted effort to achieve things with your time. One of the reasons that I picked it up was because it was on my children's reading list for the summer. Now, they are 11 years old and they are about to go into 6th grade. Where I got a little bit caught up, as I said, it is a YA book and there's a large age range that falls in YA, but I don't feel comfortable with my boys reading this book at this time. A lot of the characters seem to find it funny to do things that would, in our current day, result in death, such as jumping from large buildings, and they actually had a term for that and it was called splatting. In Scythe, not only is there no disease or death or anything like that unless you are culled by an actual scythe, if you do experience what would now in our current day be a mortal wound, in their society they can put you back together and heal you and you're just fine and you can move on with life. I didn't want my children to read about splatting as a form of entertainment. Part of my discomfort, I think, with this story was that I had just been to New York City with my children to the World Trade Center Memorial. It felt like too much. I'm curious to know if I'm being overbearing in my thoughts. The final book that I read during this time was Ghosts of the Tsunami by Lloyd Parry. This is a nonfiction account of the tsunami that happened in 2011 in Japan that killed over 18,000 people. The vast majority of the people who died during this were older. You had a much less chance of survival if you were a senior citizen, say. But this book followed school children. There was one school that was very hard hit by the tsunami. The fifth grade in particular lost nearly all the children. This book tried to explore the why of that. And it went from the actual tsunami and what these different families were doing during it. It went all the way up through a trial that occurred, the ruling on that, and different people's perspectives. I listened to an audiobook on this. The narrator did a good job with the emotion and just the crushing nature of this story. It was a very good and impactful book. This book does not hold back on any of the gruesome details and the terrible experiences of the families who had to dig through the rubble and find their children and identify them, and then how they dealt with all of that, how family relationships changed, how neighborly relationships changed, dealt with the difficulties of two families living next to each other, one of whom had gone back and gotten their children and the other who didn't. It was a rough book. I have started reading a number of other books. I am excited to tell you about all of those. That is it for now, and I will see you next time.